In the summer of 1940, when Britain stood on the brink of invasion and the future of Europe hung in the balance, its survival depended not only on radar stations and aircraft factories, but on the courage of young men from across the world who chose to fight for its skies. Among them was Albert Gerald Lewis, a quiet, determined South African who crossed continents to join the Royal Air Force and found himself at the very centre of the Battle of Britain, flying the Hawker Hurricane against overwhelming odds. Lewis would become one of the conflict's most lethal fighter aces, achieving feats of skill and bravery that placed him among the elite of fighter command. His story is not just one of individual heroism, but of how the war for Britain's survival became a truly global effort, fought by men who were not born British, yet risked everything to defend Britain when it mattered most. This is a story of Albert Gerald Lewis, one of history's greatest pilots. Albert Gerald Lewis was born on the 10th of April in 1918, in Kimberley, South Africa, into a world still recovering from the First World War. Like many young men of his generation, he was drawn early to flying, captivated by both the romance and challenge of aviation. As a teenager, he paid for his own flying training, earning a private pilot license at the age of 18, a clear sign of both determination and natural aptitude. In 1938, at just 20 years old, Lewis travelled to Britain to join the Royal Air Force and Short Service Commission. Europe was already moving toward war, and Lewis arrived at the moment when the RAF was expanding rapidly, hungry for capable young pilots. He joined as an active pilot officer in October 1938 and passed through training units flying a variety of aircraft, absorbing the discipline and the technical demands of military aviation. His first operational posting, to No. 616 Squadron, was relatively uneventful, flying older aircraft and performing routine duties. He was soon transferred to ferry flying with No. 12 Group Ferry Pool, a job he found dull but quietly sharpened his handling skills and familiarity with multiple aircraft types. When war finally came, Lewis was ready. In December 1939, he was posted to No. 504 Squadron at Debden, flying the Hawker Hurricane. For Lewis, this marked the beginning of real combat flying. Early patrols were tense but uneventful, the so-called phony war offering little action between fleeting contacts with enemy reconnaissance aircraft. That changed dramatically in the spring of 1940, when Germany launched its offensive into the west. In April, Lewis was transferred again, this time to No. 85 Squadron under the squadron leader Peter Oliver, one of the fighter command's most aggressive and experienced units. Stationed in France, 85 Squadron flew dawn to dusk patrols with no radar support. The pace was relentless, the exhaustion severe, and losses mounted quickly as German fighters strafed airfields and bombed aircraft on the ground. Lewis flew repeatedly, often on little sleep, as the war over France turned into a desperate fighting retreat. On the 12th of May 1940, Lewis scored his first confirmed victories, shooting down both a Messerschmitt Bf 109 and a Heinkel HE 111 in a single sortie. A few days later came the action that would define his early career, and it defined Albert Gerald's reputation as a fighter ace. On the 19th of May 1940, during the desperate fighting over France that foreshadowed the Battle of Britain, Lewis achieved what every fighter pilot dreamed of and few ever managed. In a single day, flying his Hurricane against relentless German attacks, he shot down 5 enemy aircraft on his own. An ace in a day, even among the most experienced pilots, was a rarity, acquiring not only exceptional flying skill and marksmanship, also stamina, situational awareness, and sheer nerve. Lewis's success that day was all the more remarkable because it came amid the chaos of retreat, with Allied forces under constant pressure and little margin for error. The achievement marked him out as a pilot of extraordinary ability and led directly to the award of the Distinguished Flying Cross. Lewis escaped back to England flying one of the last serviceable Hurricanes, utterly exhausted. He was granted brief leave, during which he famously fell asleep at a hotel table, too tired to even reach his room. By the summer of 1940, Britain stood alone, and the Battle of Britain was about to begin. Lewis and 85 Squadron were initially based at Castle Camps. Operating in the thick of fighting, fighter command was stretched to the limit, relying on radar, the observer corps, ground control, and the endurance of pilots like Lewis to counter the numerically superior Luftwaffe. Hurricanes bore the brunt of the fighting, intercepting bombers while Spitfires tangled with the escorts. Lewis flew multiple sorties a day, often alone on patrols, facing constant danger. On the 18th of August, he destroyed a Bf 110 on a solo patrol, and on the 31st of August, he shot down a Bf 109 during a fierce interception over the southeast of England. By early September, 85 Squadron was exhausted and rotated north. But Lewis's battle was not over. On the 14th of September 1940, he was posted to 249 Squadron at North Weald, one of the highest scoring squadrons of the battle. The timing was critical. The Luftwaffe was making its final all-out effort to break fighter command. On his first day with the squadron, Lewis shot down a HE-111 and damaged another. 4 days later, he destroyed a Bf-109, bringing his total to 12 confirmed victories. On the 27th of September 1940, Albert Gerald Lewis experienced one of the most intense and defining days of his entire war, a day that cemented his place among the elite fighters of the Battle of Britain. Flying with 249 Squadron, Lewis was thrown into a series of furious engagements as large German formations crossed the Channel to strike targets in southern England. Over the course of the day, he claimed an extraordinary 6 enemy aircraft destroyed, including 3 Bf-109 fighters, 2 Bf-110 heavy fighters, and a Ju-88 bomber, along with 2 probables and 1 damaged. This was not a single clean encounter, but a succession of violent, chaotic fights, with Lewis throwing his Hurricane back into the combat against fresh waves of enemy aircraft. The physical strain alone was immense, but so too was the mental pressure. Every mistake could be fatal. The events of the 27th of September would later be cited when he was awarded a bar to his Distinguished Flying Cross, recognising a total of 18 confirmed victories, and his outstanding contribution to Britain's defence at the moment of its greatest peril. The following day, the cost of such intensity caught up with him. On the 28th of September, while flying as top cover for his squadron, Lewis was attacked from behind by enemy fighters. His Hurricane was hit by cannon fire and burst into flames at high altitude. Badly wounded by shrapnel and surrounded by fire, he managed to bail out, falling through the sky before his parachute opened. He landed safely but suffered severe burns to his face, throat, hands and legs, and was temporarily blinded. He spent weeks in hospital, close to death, before beginning a long recovery. Many pilots never returned to flying after such injuries. Lewis did. By December 1940, he was back with 249 Squadron and promoted to flight lieutenant and flying operational sorties once again. In January 1941, he became A Flight Commander. Although the Battle of Britain had ended, the air war continued over occupied Europe, and Lewis flew fighter sweeps and patrols, still facing heavy opposition. Fellow fighter pilots later recalled that by this stage he seemed more withdrawn, deeply affected by what he'd endured. In April 1941, he was removed from frontline combat and posted as an instructor, a move that likely saved his life. In 1942, Lewis volunteered for overseas service and was given command of 261 Squadron, posted to Ceylon. Conditions there were harsh, with disease, primitive airfields and the constant threat of Japanese attack. On the 9th of April 1942, the day before his 24th birthday, Japanese aircraft struck his base as he was taking off to intercept them. His aircraft was hit, set on fire, and he was wounded in the shoulder. He bailed out at an extremely low altitude, narrowly surviving once again. After months of recovery, he returned to Britain, his flying career finally over. Lewis spent the remainder of the war in training and staff roles. He left the RAF in 1946 with the rank of acting squadron leader, credited with 18 confirmed victories, one of the highest tallies achieved by any pilot during the Battle of Britain. After the war, he turned to farming, studying agriculture, eventually returning to South Africa before settling again in England. Albert Gerald Lewis died on the 14th of December 1982. He was remembered by those who knew him not as a brash ace, but as a quiet, brave and deeply human man who gave everything in Britain's darkest hour and carried the scars, visible and invisible, for the rest of his life. If you enjoyed this video going through the life of Albert Gerald Lewis, then please give the video a like and please subscribe, as 99% of you who watch these videos aren't subscribed, and it really helps. And also share the video with your friends and comment letting me know what I should talk about next. Because sometimes history doesn't need a rewrite, it just needs to be told properly.